This was my literal first reaction upon booting up Metal Hellsinger for the first time.
Holy shit.
This is what the end of that journey sounded like. So what about everything in between? Well, I'm glad you asked.
It was metal as fuck!
I'm still here, holding on. Let this body break, let this torture last. It's so beyond this age. I'm holding on. Let this body break, let this torture last. It's so beyond this age. There's something others know. This devastation feels like.
Metal Hellsinger is a first-person metal rhythm shooter. If that description means anything to you, then you'll have an inkling as to what's in store for you. If you took a look at that description and blinked twice, then buckle up, because once this ride takes off, it does not stop. Hellsinger was released in the year of our Elden Lord 2022 after being announced in 2020. Being heavily influenced by Doom 2016, Rock Band, and very likely BPM, development entered production in 2019. David Goldfarb is part of the genius behind this head-banging experience, giving a pitch that was literally,
It's like a rhythm shooter that's like playing a metal album come to life. I think that's what my pitch was. It's Doom and plus Rock Band.
a concept like that is surely bound to turn some heads and raise some eyebrows, and maybe even crack under the entire scope. With music by Two Feathers and featuring the damn A-team of Metal, Metal Hellsinger released high scores and even higher praise. And yet, as much as this game seems to be made specifically for me, I knew so very little about it even after its release. It wasn't even until it was on Gamepass that I decided to sink my teeth into it. I was not, however, expecting it to sink its teeth into me. This game is good. Like, really good. One of those games where you wish you could wipe your memory and experience it for the first time again and again and again. Playing Hellsinger is a lot like playing Tetris. That is, if your cartridge was on fire and the pieces were shaped like the
Skulls of the damned.
But you know what, that comparison has some truth. I get the same feeling playing Hellsinger that I do with Tetris. It's like the outside world fades, I'm in tune with the action, and I can start seeing my moves before they happen. Alright, so maybe I'm not Neo, but like Tetris, getting to that zen-like flow state is a magical feeling and it happens every time I play. But how does this happen? And why? What makes Metal Hellsinger so, well, metal? To answer that, we need to talk about plastic guitars and a classic Chinese dish. These games were everywhere, man. We used to be a country united in rock. Seriously though, it felt like everyone was playing, had played, or was watching someone jam out on Guitar Hero. It was as if no matter if you played games or not, just the novelty of having someone you know pretend they had musical talent was enough to sell you on the idea. If you don't already know, the Guitar Hero and Rock Band games were a similar genre of games that had you pressing buttons or keys in time with the music playing, with the latter even letting you smash and scream along to the beat. It really made you feel like Rock Band. Now, I was hardly a musician as a kid, but I could at least keep a rhythm, and boy howdy do these games let you feel the rhythm. No joke, man, this genre can really test your hand-eye coordination along with your reflexes and dexterity. The better you are at keeping your note streak up, the higher your score gets, and the bigger your ego gets as well. And I wanted my ego to be just the biggest. When the party died down, I would whisk myself away to whatever room still had Rock Band going and headbang along. It was one night when I was browsing the song list that I happened along something. A song listed under the Nightmare difficulty. Its name was so ridiculous that I couldn't help but check it out. This was my first exposure to System of a Down and especially the metal genre. And while I wouldn't say as active in those circles, I certainly never forgot about them. It was thanks to this game though that I was transfixed on the rhythm genre as a whole. Unfortunately for me, however, these classic rhythm games would soon die out. That's not to say that rhythm games don't exist now, far from it in fact. It seems like whatever platform you're on, you can find something to satisfy your rhythm needs. And while classic Guitar Hero lives on through Clone Hero, I've been missing the feeling I got when I first started the genre. The feeling like you had a direct influence on the music, like you were a part of the score. And I'm sad to say that that feeling has long passed. At least that's what I would say if it weren't for Mick Gordon.
Killer Instinct is the shit, man.
While that game is a whole topic for another time, hey, we're pretty close to 100 subs. If you want to see the KI video, you know what to do. It cannot be understated how sick this game is. And that's like 40% due to its musical implementation. There's a very deep and complex system to KI's music, but I'll try and give you a basic course. So basically, you have the score for the stage running as it would in any other game, riding along the neutral as carefree as it can be, and then once you combo your opponent, the music will then change into the next section that ups the action and tension of combat right until you find your moment and Mick hits you with If you've ever played KI, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You somehow always feel like the music goes in right when you do, and that's 100% by design.
There's a musical beat. The music will actually turn back when a combo breaker happens. And then as soon as the payout happens, when you cash out the damage of a combo, it kicks in.
There's a musical journey in KI that each match brings to the table, and as the round goes on, your musical journey will follow along in tandem.
We wanted to make sure that the music was also escalating in conjunction with what's going on in the match. There was like actually different stages to the music depending on how far into the match you were.
Mick would bring this musical philosophy along with him when working on Doom, which was a direct influence on metal Hellsinger. And the music isn't the only thing. From enemies to environment to gameplay, Hellsinger takes its inspiration and wears them with pride, while also crafting something entirely unique. Every game is made up of so many different moving parts, from visuals to sound to story to much, much more. However, it's the gameplay that makes a game fun to, well, play. As Nintendo Jesus once said,
"If it's not fun, why bother?"
Hellsinger took his word as gospel and accepts no substitutes because throughout this roughly 5-hour journey, you were always engaged with this game and its mechanics, only taking a moment for story or if you need to breathe. I need a second to breathe, holy shit. Most news outlets and reviewers call this a hybrid between Doom and Rock Band, and that's not wrong. That's straight from the horse's mouth, but I think there's a bit more to it than that. Right away, you are learning to attack on the beat, and staying consistent will up your damage and range. You also just have glory kills, albeit faster paced and usable at much further ranges. So far, yeah, it's very Doom-like. However, we don't stop there. You also have a score multiplier that's tied to your ability to deal and avoid damage, as well as your ability to keep the rhythm up. And what happens if your multiplier gets to that sweet, sweet 16? Furious increase to 16 where the vocals kick in? Let's fucking go! Oh my god. Suddenly you dictate the music. You decide when it goes in and when it's time to go all out. Oh my god! What the fuck? You know, this weirdly feels familiar, almost like I've seen it before. Well, yes, but actually no. See, what I'm really talking about is DMC5 is one of my favorite games ever, for many reasons, but one in particular stands out. Musical implementation! DMC5 takes heavy cues from Killer Instinct in regards to how its music plays out, and you see that very clearly when you pay attention to the series' standout style rating. Instead of getting clues as to when the music will ramp up, you can clearly see how your performance is not only graded, but composed. Hellsinger pulls a slight card from this, as when you build up your score meter, you are also literally building the music up. Starting with a one-time score will provide some basic rhythm and maybe that level's motif or sound, while each multiplier afterwards adds more instrumentation, with it all coming together when the vocals are added. Shooting on the beat isn't the only thing you'll be doing either, as many actions are tied to the music. Slaughter kills, much like Doom's glory kills, refill health. However, the input must come on the beat or else it'll fail. Reloading's also done this way, however with precise timing it can be done faster. When it all comes together, the combat loop becomes a combat dance, as everything you do and see is in sync with the music. Add in 4 unique weapons with different rates of fire and beat timings, you have an experience you just can't get anywhere else. I was pleasantly surprised to see that Hellsinger is a pretty damn good looking game. This game is carried by a strong art direction and design. There were multiple instances of me looking at an environment and thinking, "Oh, dude, that shit looks good!" Environments can range from ice-covered glacial temples and moonlight-covered palaces, from twisted gardens to your tried and true hell on Earth. The team no doubt looked to metal album covers for inspiration, as many levels have similar themes or looks to them. Speaking of levels, I want to mention the names of them, as some have interesting ties to real-world places. For example, the level Stygia and Acheron derives their names from rivers, as Acheron is a real-world river in Greece, once thought to lead to Hades. You know, the abode of the dead. Also real cute snake girls. Stygia, as you might have guessed, is in relation to the river Styx. Both rivers connect into Hell and are used to ferry the dead into their domain. Gehenna and Sheol are both names for Hell, or the land of the dead, in Hebrew and Judeo-Christian beliefs, with both being named directly in older texts of the Bible. I think this is a great little attention to detail and helps with the world building in Hellsinger. I mean, they very well could have went for something like
City on Fire,
or
Palace of the Damned,
and I would have eaten it up, but there's something about rooting your names in real-world history that gives that certain Genesis Squaw. I also want to give a brief mention of the cutscenes as well, because I was instantly in love with them, yet I was also strangely familiar with them. It's a running theme, I know. The way the cutscenes are presented really reminded me of Halo's terminals. Starting in 2011 with Combat Evolved Anniversary, Halo would insert terminals onto their games, which would feature small cutscenes with a very similar animatic style. In my research, I found that the studio behind Hellsinger cinematics were Room 8 Studio, a company that in fact did not work on Halo's terminals. Though they did work with Halo Infinite on environments art, so I'm partially correct. As simple as they may be, I know animation can be a heavy task, so I'm happy with the cutscenes we got. They work with the whole story being told method of plot advance, and they look great as well.
I'm saving the best for last, baby.
You cannot mention Hellsinger without mentioning the music. I mean, it's technically in the title, like twice. So where do we begin? I could talk about how each level names the track like a badge of honor, or how the devs literally recommend you headbang along, or how they feature the goddamn Avengers of metal vocalists in the promotion. But you know what? Let's just start at the beginning. I mean, you remember how this game starts, right? No? Well, here's a refresher.
Holy shit.
What I want you to take away from this are those 3 notes that start the chaos. Quick crash course on music, go! So this is what's called a leitmotif. Leitmotifs are pieces of music that are reoccurringly used to reinforce characters, ideas, events, and are brought up throughout a piece of media, typically to bring about certain emotions, whether that be triumph, dread, or any other feeling. When done right, they're also cool as hell and never fail to give you spine-tingling chills. Wait, reoccurringly isn't a word? Well, that sucks, I'm gonna use it anyway. You'll hear those 3 notes again almost immediately into the tutorial, so we can effectively call that Hellsinger's leitmotif. Moving on to Vogue, the game's first level, we're offered up our first real challenge. Like any good game, the challenge is slowly ramped up, and in this case that's in direct cause of the music. Since everything is tied to the beat, how fast the song actually is will have a direct impact on the gameplay. With that being said, have you ever fired a shotgun in a game? No, seriously, think about how a shotgun feels to shoot. In most cases, you aren't rapidly firing shots, you're methodically shooting, pumping, and shooting again. They have a very succinct timing to them. Almost like you could say they have a certain rhythm about them. And now you see the magic unfolding. I mean, there's a reason the shotgun is the first weapon you come across. Most likely you're familiar with how they operate, and since they take a beat to pump, you can get your bearings in while still being fully engaged in combat. I'm in no position to call it genius or anything, but that's just good game design, man. I don't know what else to tell you. Now in Stygia, you're probably getting the hang of combat, so why not ump the tempo and fire on every beat? That's where the dual pistols come in, allowing you to fire quicker. They also require your timing to be tighter, as getting perfect hits in succession will give you your max damage output. We also get to hear the ridiculous vocalist of this level, Elisa Whiteglaze. At first listen, it sounds like she's piggybacking on another vocalist on this track. But no, that's just Elisa absolutely flying through octaves and skyrocketing up Hellsinger's song tier list. Seriously, discovering she was providing both clean and guttural vocals on this track was like opening my third eye, as I didn't even know female vocalists like this existed. While we're on the topic of Hellsingers, let's take a look at that lineup. I wasn't kidding when I said they had a stacked roster of singers. What ties this game all together are these fine folk right here. Having artists so ingrained into the genre the game is based on makes this really feel like a passion project for everyone involved. I felt the same way in Miles Morales with its licensed artists, and I feel the same way here. Does that mean that every game needs big name artists working on this music? No, of course not. But I can't help but get giddy when I see big names listed on their feature list. And big names they do have, but before I can reveal that last headliner artist, we need to bring this journey to its end. Big ass spoilers for the end of the game. This is not a bit, I wrote it in the script, please be aware. As the game progresses, we learn a few things about our character, the Unknown. She's given this name because no one in hell knows where she came from, although it's prophesized a Hellsinger like her will be the one to usurp the throne and bring ruin to the Hells. In an attempt to prevent this, the Red Judge, who is effectively
The devil with a capital D,
steals her voice in hopes she can be stopped. However, Paz, the skull you obtain in the early game, allows your songs to be heard through him. And I mean that literally. Reason number 666 as to why I'm in love with Hellsinger. Can you guess? That's right. Musical. Implementation. Another music lesson for you. Diegetic and non-diegetic music. Think of this as musicals versus movies. In a musical, characters can not only hear the music, they often directly partake in it. This is called diegetic. These are games like Splatoon, Metal Gear Solid 5, and really anything with an in-game radio. On the flip side, movie scores are often assisting the on-screen action with the characters unaware of the music. This is called non-diegetic. This is your most common use of music and is present in almost every game out there. Except maybe in this case. I'm pretty sure Cloud can hear that theme in his sleep. While one method isn't inherently better than the other, I often prefer the former, as it is a great way to feel connected to the world and its music. Back to Hellsinger. It's alluded to that the songs you hear in-game are actually the music that Pear produced, as the Red Judge refers to them as your songs. Paz says her music is his music, and hell, even the world and the enemies are reacting and glowing to the beat of the tune. This hits the hardest in that final level though, when you hear this. Badass music, gameplay, and story rolled into one, hitting you all at once. It's just art, man. It eventually all comes together in those final moments when you meet the Red Judge face to face and are met with this. I first started my rhythm and metal journey back in 2008 with Rock Band 2, playing Chop Suey into the wee hours of the night, being engrossed, entranced, and enthralled. But most importantly, I was engaged. I was interested. I wanted more from this genre, and I wanted to learn more about it. So when I saw that Serj Tankian from System of a Down was the final guest artist for this game, all these years later, I was sold. For a moment, it felt like this game was made for me. Like every game I had played up until this point was to prepare me for this moment here and now. And this moment would not disappoint. Hellsinger continues to deliver blood-pumping moments right up until the end, and this fight is no exception. Music seemingly composed on the spot by my actions, music that is equal parts epic and terrifying, and gameplay that is fast and frantic in the best way. And as you would expect from this masterpiece of a game, the music is conveying the story in real time as the fight goes on. As the fight continues, you get perspective into the judge's mind as she is adamant in her stance even if she has an ounce of regret. And as the fight nears its end, you hear the pair giving their final decree to the judge. And as the fight reaches its climax, a familiar sound returns as your goals and hers finally meet. Metal Hellsinger, like any piece of media, isn't perfect. What little faults I have with the game are few and far between, but still fair. I don't like the repetitive bosses. I wish there were more creative and diverse weapons like the Hellcrows. I wish the game was longer and offered more content. But despite these gripes, I can't help but feel like Metal Hellsinger is a masterpiece in everything it sets out to do. When David Goldfarb set out to make a game back in 2019, he wanted to make a rhythm shooter that's like playing a metal album come to life. In my honest opinion, they absolutely succeeded. David had an idea that he brought into fruition. Two Feathers created a metal soundscape that will forever remain in my heart and in my workout playlist, and The Outsiders made a game that is metal personified. Sick.